All right, let's dive in. Today, we are breaking down a really powerful psychological model that, honestly, helps explain some of our most self-defeating behaviors. It's a framework for understanding why we get stuck in these patterns we desperately want to escape, and, way more importantly, how we can actually get out.
Have you ever been there? You find yourself asking a question just like this one. You finally escape a bad situation, maybe a toxic job, a destructive habit, an unhealthy relationship, and then, out of nowhere, you feel this irrational pull to go back. It is so baffling. It's a deeply human experience, and it's the exact question we're going to tackle.
So why on earth does this happen? Well, the answer isn't really about a lack of willpower or discipline. It's not that you're weak. Instead, it lies in these powerful and often totally invisible stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And this is the key right here. Our destructive patterns are almost always built on a foundation of lies. And we're not talking about little fibs. These are core beliefs that we adopt to try and make sense of our pain. Beliefs like I'm not enough or there's just something uniquely wrong with me. These stories, they become the rocket fuel for our worst habits.
So this destructive pattern, it actually has a name. It's called the control cycle. And it's basically what happens when we try to fix ourselves through sheer force of will, all while operating from those false stories we just talked about. It's a predictable downward spiral, and once you see the pattern, you can start to understand it.
Okay, so let's break this thing down. Let's really get into the anatomy of this cycle, because it all begins long before we actually act out. It starts with an internal setup, the series of mental steps that create the absolute perfect conditions for failure. Okay, so here's how that setup works. First, it starts with an unhealthy belief. The source material tells the story of a woman who, because she had an absent father, came to believe the story that she wasn't valuable. Now this leads directly to step 2, self-entitlement. Her thinking starts to shift to, you know what, I deserve this, I've earned it, and that justifies her search for validation. And that creates the perfect opening for temptation, a situation that pops up that seems to offer the very thing her false story is craving. So this internal setup, it totally primes us for action. Once that internal permission slip is signed, the downward spiral just picks up speed, moving from a private thought right into a public behavior. The very first response is usually resistance and hiding. We try to white-knuckle it, to fight it all by ourselves, which ironically only makes the temptation stronger, so we hide it. And then it's kind of inevitable, right? We act out. And the model notes that the behavior always delivers the pleasure it promised. Otherwise, we wouldn't keep risking it. Then that leads to withdrawal and justification as we pull away and start to rationalize what we did. And finally, we land on blame and shame, which just tragically reinforces the original lie. See, I knew it. I knew I wasn't enough.
And this is the bottom of the spiral. This is where we feel trapped. We start to believe we can't be trusted, that we're always going to be this way. We start to really dislike who we've become, and this crushing sense of hopelessness just sets in. It's a really ugly place to be.
But, and this is a huge but, the cycle isn't unbreakable. There is hope. And according to this whole framework, it all comes down to a single, incredibly powerful action: the choice to tell someone what's really going on inside.
And this solution is so powerful because it's completely counterintuitive. I mean, the entire momentum of the control cycle is built on isolation, on hiding. The one way out requires you to move in the exact opposite direction.
Just think about that for a second. The moment you bring another person into your struggle, even if you just confess the temptation, you break the pattern. Secrecy is the fuel for this fire, and disclosure, that's the water that puts it out. All those rationalizations and all that pain just lose their power when they're exposed to the light.
So let's put these two paths right next to each other so you can really see the difference. On the left, you've got the control cycle strategy, resistance. It seems strong, but it's actually treating the issue lightly, assuming you can just manage it on your own. And this only heightens temptation. Now look at the right, disclosure. It acknowledges the true power of the pattern, it brings light into the madness, and, this is so crucial, it gives other people the chance to actually love and support you through it.
So why is this one simple act so darn effective? Well, a few big reasons. For one, it lets you confess the intention before you have to confess the action with all its consequences. You can stop the spiral at any point. Doesn't matter if you're just feeling tempted or you've already acted out. It transforms the whole struggle from a secret battle into an opportunity for connection and for love. It lets you live with nothing hidden.
And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Breaking free from this cycle isn't just about avoiding bad behavior. It's about freeing up all that mental and emotional energy you were spending on hiding and managing your failure so you can finally focus on a life of purpose and real connection.
So, I'll just leave you with this final question to chew on. What if freedom isn't found in fighting our secrets alone in the dark, but in finding the courage to share them in the light? It's a powerful idea, and it's one that might just change everything.